Meeting to order. We are now being recorded. All right, roll call.
Tom Pickner here.
Joyce Gilmore here.
Alan Greenberg here.
Colleen Straponi here.
Jack McClellan here.
All right, the gang's all here. We'll start with good and welfare for the public. Anyone in the public have anything they would like to state?
There is nobody online.
So we're good there. We'll move on to new business. First order of business, David, you're up. 55 Hartford Avenue West, local upgrade.
All right, so Tom Ryder, the Board of Health Engineer, has sent the board a memo for the local upgrade request. The applicant is requesting a local upgrade approval for the proposed septic system upgrade for the above referenced property of 55 Hartford Avenue West. Plans prepared by Land Planning dated 6/27/24 and revised on 8/7/24. Title V requires that the soil absorption system have at least a 10-foot setback to property lines. The applicant is seeking a 2-foot setback to the Hartford Ave West right-of-way. A setback of less than 5 feet is allowed pending a surveyor certify the location of the system to the property line. The applicant is also seeking a 5-foot setback to the existing house foundation. This offset is allowed for repairs with a local upgrade approval for a conventional soil absorption system. As this is a repair and the site limitations create constraints to upgrade to Title V new construction standards, Tom Ryder is recommending the approval of the Title V local upgrade.
Any members have any questions or comments?
No, I'm very familiar with the piece of property, so, and I'm happy to see that it's going to be fixed in this manner.
It's always nice to improve up to a current Title V. The only question I had, and I guess the plan may actually indicate why, I was just curious why the back of the home was not looked at. Is that simply because of the ledge element?
Digging back there, it's just all over. It's really the only place to get a birds out front.
And isn't the back uphill?
If you could come up front, please, to the microphone so we can hear. Just list your name and your address for the record, please.
David Stewart, 6 Cemetery Street.
Thank you.
To answer the question, they had poked around in several areas and, as you can see, I don't know if you're familiar with the property at all, but there's quite an outcropping of ledge, in the front, and it just continues up the hill out back.
Yeah.
So there wasn't any, 3 feet, stuff like that. They were able to get down in some areas ledge right away.
Yeah.
So the old septic system was closer to the front. I mean, the old cesspool, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I see that's to the left of the.
And, I suspected early on that would really be the only place to dig would be out front to get a system. As it turned out, inclination was right. So the engineers, everyone, the health agent, they were all there and witnessed it. So
Yeah, Tom was fine with it, our engineer, so, I guess, I don't know if it makes reference to the survey or combined. I don't know if that's happened yet, or if that would happen after our potential approval is.
I lost you there a little bit. What was the question?
Well, our engineer had put in his write-up that a setback of less than 5 feet is allowed pending a surveyor certify the location of the system of the property line. So
Yeah, so all the property lines were staked and shot prior to the permit.
Yeah.
So we knew what we were doing.
Okay, the only questions and comments I have are, I see you're going to abandon a well,
Yes,
drill a new well.
yes.
I've seen in the past, and I'm not a septic installer. If I had Tom Ryder online, I'd ask him. But I've seen in the past when a leach field is that close to the foundation, and I know the property and I know the constraints. I've seen a rubber barrier installed. So my question would be, is that something?
Yeah,
And it's
that's
gonna-
in the design.
Okay.
Barriers in the design.
Okay, I don't see the barrier on the line. Who's doing the install?
At this point, it looked like Mike Tatro should be doing it.
Okay,
It's not official yet, but I believe so.
Okay, and you said there is gonna be a barrier
Yeah.
between the foundation and the leach field where it abuts? Okay,
And it's,
again, I'm
it's
sorry.
in there. It's hard to see, you know, if you have a look, it's definitely.
Yeah, I see a wall.
Maybe it's on the wall detail, Alan?
It is, you can see it, if you look up on the, side, you can see the barrier there from the foundation.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, so those are my only comments, just based on things that we've seen in the past.
It's all sense.
Good to go. You're a local guy. We know where to find you.
Yeah, go make a nice little home for affordable for somebody to come along and buy and move in. We need more of those, so.
Yeah, no, from what I understand, it was in its day. It was quite nice, so.
It's a little home, just needs a little attention and be back in service and utilities come first, so. All right, so we're good to go?
Yeah, you're all set.
All right.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. We actually need a vote. My apologies. We need someone to make a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the property at Hartford Avenue, 55 Hartford Avenue West, receiving the local upgrade request.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Thank you.
All right,
Now
thank
you're
you.
good.
Have a good night. Hopefully you're not here too long.
David, thank you.
All right, take care.
You too.
Remembering back to when we had that property on Taft Ave, that they eventually tore the house down completely.
I don't want to be mean or anything, but with open meeting law, we need to stay on topic.
Gotcha. Thank you. Open meeting law discussion. How appropriate.
What a segue.
So that's you,
Jack,
Tom.
you want to run with it?
No, that's you.
Okay, so I'd asked to put the topic on the agenda because recently we've had some conscientious eyes taking a look at meeting minutes from various groups. I know within the town of Mendon and actually in other communities in the state of Massachusetts. And so because of that, I thought it'd be a good opportunity for us to review how we do things with our meeting and make sure that we're kind of in compliance with how the AGO, the Attorney General's office, likes to see the open meeting law applied to agendas and whatnot. So I had reached out to their group. The group that handles it is the Division of Open Government within the AGO. And I just kind of presented them a couple of situations for how we do our agendas and a couple of examples. For example, we have two elements on our agenda that we use, BOH updates and health agent updates. And the response I got back was that general topics such as that, and another example, I'm just saying new business or old business, without additional information, are typically insufficient
Okay.
to comply with the requirements of the open meeting.
Okay.
So we probably, after tonight, probably have to move forward and kind of substitute that or change that so that they include a little more specificity.
Yeah.
You know, in advance.
So would a bulleted list be okay to use?
Well, as long as the public, the way they phrased it, a reasonable person can have an idea what's going to be discussed.
Yeah.
You could do it in a bulleted fashion, so they don't have to spell it all
Okay.
out.
Use the words possible discussion. Possible discussion on, local food establishment inspections.
All right.
And then list which ones they are.
Okay.
So it's actually the actual term, new business and old business, that isn't detailed enough.
No, it's BOH admin updates where it's calling, I just saying updates. Like for my update tonight, it's gonna be the Eversource property on Providence Street.
Okay, so that needs to be detailed after.
Underneath it.
I got it.
You have to
Yeah.
So
stay.
similar to,
So similar to like new business right now.
similar to what we're already doing.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
And
Just gonna be
you know,
generic.
we do use new business, old business, but Jack puts the bulleted items under it. So people know in those categories what we're gonna be talking about.
Mhm.
It's just that those other two are just two more, just aren't specific enough.
Okay.
So they just look for a little more,
Not a problem. I'll do that.
more detail. And they indicated too, and not that it's an issue for us, because of the general category, when you don't actually specify something on the agenda in advance and you talk about it, sometimes we might just be more than Jack giving us an update. We might actually deliberate or actually vote on it. That in and of itself isn't necessarily an issue, as long as it's something considered to be unexpected within 48 hours by the chair of the committee, of the group. But, you know, they encourage specificity. And so if you know, one of the other things they mentioned, that's what I have here. With regard to kind of giving a report, see, while a public body, this is one of the responses I got back from the Attorney General's office. While a public body may include the type of item on a meeting agenda, as a best practice, we recommend that when including such a topic, public bodies indicate explicitly that the time is being reserved for topics not anticipated by the chair. So, kind of pointing that out.
Yeah, we should have on our agenda, topics not anticipated by the chair within
We'll do
48
that
hours.
7.
Yeah, oh, yeah. We do
It's
have
on,
it.
it's on our paperwork here.
Yeah, it's on it. Topics not anticipated,
Within 48 hours.
within 48 hours.
Right.
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 Would be, so the question would be, to be kind of redundant,
Yeah,
you know, to kind of do that.
yeah, we already do that already.
Could
Right.
do it under 40, could do it under that if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so that was kind of the feedback from them. Other things were fine. I did ask about whether or not, because we do remote meetings, they thought that there was a need to actually show meeting attendees, documents, and handouts that we utilize. There's no requirement for us to do that. If it's possible, they said they would, you know, it'd be nice to do, or they would encourage that, but it's not a requirement. So for example, if you're watching a planning board meeting, they always typically put up a plan on the screen for the people remotely to see it. You know, we get plans here, we typically don't put them up. We could continue with that, that's fine, but it's just something I want to inquire about if we need to be more informative. So somebody watching remotely after the fact,
Someone could request a copy.
If they request a
oh
copy.
yeah, you could always request.
Have
Yep.
copies. So,
Public
okay.
meeting.
So if someone from the public shows up to a Board of Health meeting, just because they knew that a Board of Health meeting was taking place, and they had something Board of Health related that they wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
We couldn't take them until agenda item 7. Am I understanding that correctly?
I believe that would be under number 2.
Good and welfare.
Okay.
Typically, topics not anticipated within 48 hours, usually I have an emergency element to them that they couldn't wait until the next meeting to be discussed. Good and welfare for the public, anyone can show up, then we give them a 5-minute limit. The board is not obligated to get into a discussion with the individual. We take it under advisement as the board has done before. 48 hours is usually something that's of an emergency nature.
Yeah, in the open meeting law packet, it says that any topics that's not on the agenda, unless, if it's not an emergency, they said hold off and wait till your next
Mhm.
meeting.
Right.
Unless it's an emergency, yeah, bring it up, but if it's not an emergency and the public doesn't need to know right then and there, just hold it off to the next meeting.
Hope our meetings run fast.
I had, you know, inquired about those two categories as well, good and welfare for the public and good and welfare for the board. And they thought as a suggestion that it might be better to list it simply as public comment or public participation.
Or both, or just number two?
For good and welfare of the public.
Alright.
But I guess, that phrase, good and welfare, isn't that synonymous with the same thing? Yeah, so again, this is just someone's view.
Okay,
So I think what we're doing is, I think that phrasing equals that. I don't know if anyone would mistake that phrase for anything different.
And it's really, in that phrase is actually contained in Robert's Rules of Order as well.
There you go. Makes it official.
Well, it's a guide.
Yeah.
It's guidance.
So, you know,
Okay,
a couple of tweaks we can make.
definitely.
Well,
People looking into that.
yeah, no, I mean,
Well, it's only
that's the
because,
question.
I know, I don't want to be on his radar.
you know, do you want to add to that?
Nope, I do not.
With that thing? Okay.
Nope.
So, yeah. Well, want to be in good stand.
That's right.
What do you think, Joyce?
No, I think it's fine.
Anything else on open meeting law discussion at this time?
We have one guest, Mark, who's joining us.
Hello, Mark.
Any comments, Mark?
Say no.
All right.
Listening mode on.
Okay, so we will move on then. We're gonna go to, agenda item number 4, old business. The continuance of the tobacco regulations discussion. You're up again, Tom.
Again. Jack had provided us, does Joyce have this as well?
Joyce has it, I started.
Okay. So we had been waiting on a response back from town council as to their opinion. You've had a chance to.
Yep.
To read that. Joyce, you had a chance to read what's provided by
Yep.
Karis?
Yep,
So.
which
from
I
their-
agreed with. I agreed with.
Was that?
I agreed with it.
So based on the council's feedback, it appears that they would be fine with what's being proposed for a verbiage change.
Added those details, basically just adding the effective date
Yeah.
of that change.
I think Jack had attached.
And we need to do it at a public hearing.
Well, so therein lies the question. She mentioned in that email, she made reference to a public hearing. However, when we were talking with her before, I believe she was aware that we didn't make the initial changes in the form of a public hearing. We did it in the form of a public meeting, but it wasn't actually a public hearing. And a public hearing to me connotes having to give advance notice, in a publication, to the public body that a certain topic is going to be discussed, so that the public can weigh in on it. That's something you would do for a new regulation. Or I think if you were to substantially amend a regulation, that was going to substantially change. But when we made the initial changes that went into effect January 1, we didn't do that.
And I thought somewhere, and I thought it was a former select board member that may have told us or advised us that we didn't need a public hearing.
If I
for
may
such a small
interject.
change.
For a Board of Health regulation in the municipality, a public hearing is only required when it involves Title V. That is it. It's at the board's discretion if they want to hold a public hearing on any regulation that adopts or changes or whatever. But a public hearing is only required if it's Title V related. And that's also stated in the the Massachusetts Local Boards of Health Legal Handbook. So the board at discretion would decide if a public hearing was warranted or not.
Very good.
And at the last meeting when Karis was talking to Harry O's lawyer, she said, yes, a public meeting was fine. A public hearing was not needed as long as we had a public meeting and discussion about the tobacco regulations.
I'm just wondering when she used the phrase public hearing in that email, if she just was thinking in her mind.
Public meeting.
And didn't you go back to her with an email?
I did. and
Regarding
just to
that?
have her clarify, because I wanted to point out that, in our view, a hearing, a public hearing connotes a little different element as opposed to just a regularly scheduled public meeting in which you could do a hearing. But a hearing in and of itself
Mhm.
kind of comes with it the requirement for advance notification.
Yes, I would have to publicize it, the newspapers 14 days before and 7 days before it's discussed.
Okay.
Didn't she recommend the public hearing though for this particular topic?
No, she mentioned
No,
public hearing.
she said, if you wish to amend regulations, you will need to go through a public hearing process, as you did last year.
Okay, so do we want to wait for clarification from Karis as to if there's any confusion between a public meeting and a public hearing? Or do we want to proceed?
My view, or my vote would be to proceed, especially given what Jack has added into the conversation with regard to the allowance for Board of Health.
Okay. Joyce, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I think what Jack said is, you know, that you don't, not about a public hearing unless it's a Title V.
Okay. So if we do this, this really isn't pertaining to 147 Hartford Ave. This is something we're doing in general. So based on some of the information that was gathered tonight on open meeting practice, I would say that an action to amend or add detail to an existing regulation would have to wait till our next meeting.
Correct.
If I'm understanding this correctly. Okay. So,
We have the topic on the agenda.
And I
uh,
would need to show the wording of what's gonna be used,
When you say show the word.
like how, what the words are gonna be changed for it to be amended.
Well, we
Yeah,
have
you
it-
should
have-
have that.
We have it in front of us,
right,
But I don't have it for the
It's
public
not on
review
the agenda though.
but does the public have to view that? Because I was just talking about whether or not we have to post documents for public review. We don't have to.
No, but if somebody came in, because you would be amending it, this is just discussion to
Right.
amend it.
Yeah.
So the topic would have to be tobacco regulations amendment.
and I think Jack is correct. That the wording should appear when the agenda is posted.
Correct, so I would attach.
Right, so people will actually be able to see prior to the meeting what the additional wording is to
So
the
in
existing
actual
regulation.
technical regs, you'd actually have that with the
Correct.
new wording.
Correct.
Well, you're
And-
gonna have to print them up anyway, and you're gonna have to amend the tobacco regulations themselves, and then you're gonna, if it moves forward, then you're gonna have
Right.
to sign it.
And amending the tobacco regulations with that detail, that effective date detail, has nothing to do with 147 Hartford Ave.
No, it's a totally generic
Right.
change that we're making to the tobacco regulations.
Right, so that will appear on our agenda for our next meeting,
Correct.
and that will be when we will be able to take action
Vote.
on that. Okay. Everybody
Yeah,
got that?
yeah,
So that there's separation?
yeah.
Okay. So that's where that ends up. Right, moving right along, folks. Board of Health admin updates, please.
Are we skipping over 147 Harvard Avenue East altogether?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have to, really.
Yeah,
I just wasn't too sure if that was a skip.
Well, we shouldn't skip it. What I would just comment is that at this time, no action
Okay.
to be taken. That would be my
well,
take on it.
if we're gonna talk about 147 Hartford Ave East in particular, I feel that the previous application should either be denied or pulled back. Because I made the statement in a meeting that we were gonna look into our regulations. This is when we didn't know if we were gonna go down the road of adopting a waiver. We were still going back and forth with council and discussing it as to what the best route was. So I feel that if we're talking about 147 Hartford Ave East and their tobacco application, it should be either denied or pulled back. Because I made the statement that after we sorted this all out, they could reapply. I
Okay,
used the word reapply.
Yeah.
So that previous application in my mind is null and void. Any other thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things that's a little bit disconcerting is they applied before the rules changed, right?
No, they
No.
applied after the rules changed.
So the rules changed.
We got their application in April. The rules went into effect January 1st, 2024. So they didn't
Oh.
submit their application 3 months after the fact.
Okay,
The language that they're talking about, that you guys are talking about for the continuance of the tobacco regulations discussion is so that 147 Hartford Ave can then apply.
right,
Or anyone else that had an approved plan by the approving authority, mainly the planning board, prior to January 1st, 2024.
right, yeah, okay, that was what I was thinking. Yeah.
This is not about
Right.
147 Hartford Ave.
So if I may, I have a concern
Please.
regarding this language that you're talking about inserting into the tobacco regulations. My concern is now that we have insinuated ourselves, the board has insinuated itself into other boards' applicants, the planning board, the ZBA, and we're going to insert this language to allow 147 Hartford Ave to apply. What's our due diligence moving forward on any other regulations we choose to amend? Because we do this now, are we requiring ourselves to, if we say, choose to amend our food regulations, do we have to stop ourselves now and say, wait a minute, is there an application before the planning board or the ZBA or the Concom that may impact this amendment? I mean, to me, it's overburdensome. You know, each applicant is separate unto themselves and to each individual board. It's their due diligence to, when they make an application for something, to consult with the other boards at that time. So now the board, our board now is saying, well, this applicant had his application in for a site plan review that doesn't even concern the board. And now what we're going to do now is any other applicant that applies to planning, zoning, because we've taken a look back at this, are we now requiring ourselves to perform the same due diligence on future applicants or on other boards? That's just my concern.
I would say no. Only because, even though it was brought up because of 147, in my view, and actually Karis pointed this out in her suggested waiver language example, it comes down to intent. What was the intent of the board when they implemented that requirement that would go into effect in January 1? If the board is in agreement, or the majority of the board is in agreement, that the intent matches the proposed language, that kind of takes away the ambiguity from what was intended to begin with initially.
You could apply that same argument to the intent of any future applicant for the planning, zoning, or Concom too.
No, because until it gets to the Board of Health, we don't have a concern. It's only because this applicant submitted an application to the Board of Health that had nothing to do with what they were doing with the planning board. They submitted an application to us. So we acted based on the application they gave us, not an application you gave to the planning board of the zoning.
Well, what if you have an applicant for the planning board that's gonna, put a restaurant in? And we change our food regulations and say, no more fried food. How is that any different?
Well, depends on how you want to apply it. Are we saying no more fried food for any new establishment looking to do fried food? Or are we saying no more fried food for anybody that's currently doing fried food? And you're going retro and you're saying anybody that's doing fried food now, you have to stop.
Oh, I mean, it's a slippery slope because, you know, this applicant was applied for a site plan review for a retail store that was gonna sell tobacco. And we're now looking at possibly amending our regulations because that person had an application in with the planning board at that time. So how would that be different for any other applicant?
Because that application brought to light the fact that there was ambiguity in statements that we proposed to insert into our regulations. And again, if the board is in agreement, or the majority is in agreement, that the intent wasn't to affect an establishment like that, then this goes to correct what should have been put in the very beginning to start with. And this wasn't.
I think that the board, your regulations are pretty clear and straightforward right now. I personally, it's just my personal opinion, that you are opening yourselves up for the possibility of future applicants having maybe a reason to challenge the board on any future amendments on the regulations, on any regulation. That's just my opinion. Maybe we should ask town council.
I'm not in a position right now to ask town council anymore. We've had town council's opinion given to us. We've also had the opinion given to us from the Mass Association of Health Boards. And they're both in agreement that the language we're choosing to use is proper. So as far as I'm concerned, this board can make a decision.
That was just my opinion.
That's my position. We have the information we need.
I guess my only concern, I understand that we're basically inserting an effective date for that particular section of the tobacco regulations. So the only ambiguity that I see is when we use the term approving authority. Because as pointed out, it may not always be the planning board.
Could change, but right now it is the planning board.
And what if somebody puts something in, we know some of these projects can take 2, 3, 4, 5 years before they actually put a shovel in the ground in some cases. So I like the fact that we're gonna add an effective date. It's the approving authority.
This, what happens in the future has absolutely no bearing on this change. None, because all those people will have to comply with what was intended to be put in that in the first place.
All those people, other than people that already had something in the pipeline that has gone by, so
That's correct. That is correct.
so we don't know who else is in the pipeline that put something before the planning board before January 1st, 2024.
That's looking to sell tobacco.
Right, and this is the only thing that this particular language pertains to, is that one section of the tobacco regulations.
That was my opinion. That's what it was just about. Excuse me. And quite frankly, I think that it's not gonna be an issue ever again because of the way it was set up. You know what I'm saying? Like,
But we can't-
they'll be able to get their approval because their plan was approved beforehand. And the rule now is not that. So this would be the only one that would be, that would be, related to almost.
If we, in agreement that the intent was it was supposed to apply to businesses that come before town of Mendon or the approving authority, whose site plan gets approved after January 1, 2024, that's how it would be applied.
But when it comes to tobacco, we're the approving authority.
But we're talking about whose site plan. This is how it all starts with a site plan approval. Ultimately, we're gonna approve
we're
their
not-
local
we're not-
application.
Yeah, but we're not mentioning site plan. We don't have anything to do with site plans, other than waste disposal system.
That's correct. So what we're saying in there is that that new requirement was only intended to apply to business who were gonna come before the town of Mendon, or the approving authority as of January 1, 2024, whose site plan would be approved after January 1.
Right, but we're not putting any of that language, that language isn't included.
What we're saying, whose site business plan was approved by the town of Mendon's approving authority on or after January 1, 2024. It's spelled out. We've been looking at this for weeks.
I agree. But we're also listening to everyone that is part of the Board of Health and trying to, scrutinize it so that we get it right.
I believe we have confirmation from both the MAHB and from town council that this is not a problem. Their only holdout was waiting for town council's viewpoint. We have it. She's given it.
And quite honestly, it's not going to relate to anybody else ever again.
Well, there are other businesses in the pipeline that have approved. Or have submitted, I can't say it's approved,
Right,
have a submitted plan that may apply for tobacco.
Submitted plan and approved plan are two different things. Just because they have it submitted,
Mhm.
apply, it has to be approved.
Okay.
So the
Right.
planning board gives they gave their blessing after after January.
Let's put it on the agenda and see how it goes.
Well, I got just a question. The tobacco regulations, if we did go through public hearing and we did advertise it the 14 days, the 7 days, did all the stuff legally, like a Title V regulation, would they be denied or approved? We went through a public hearing? We're changing the tobacco regs?
Will be denied or approved.
Like anybody that, regardless, it didn't apply in time, but we had a public hearing, made the publications known.
So you're going back in time.
Yeah, like so
So
it's
when
like
we
the last year.
adopted 1,000-foot,
Yes. Because I'm just trying to think, so for future regulation amendments or whatever, that we should automatically,
that's a good
public
point.
hearing automatically type of thing.
Well, I think what you would confirm is that a public hearing is not required by the Board of Health to implement. The only element that we're required to do a public hearing on is Title V.
Correct.
It's at the discretion otherwise of the Board. We could do a public hearing, but we're not required to do.
right,
Correct.
but I think,
If we did one
right,
for tobacco regulations, would this be denied or approved?
When you say did one, you mean did one for this?
Public, yeah.
yeah, when we inserted that 1,000-foot
Verbiage
buffer,
change. Would the verbiage change be denied or approved?
no,
I'm confused.
when we adopted the 1,000-foot buffer, or the 1,000-foot distance between tobacco sales, if we had done a public meeting at that time,
Public hearing.
public hearing. Right, gotta get it right. Public hearing, when we did that. And people had, it was advertised and we went the whole route for a public hearing. Would the current, would would it be approved or denied based on if we did a public hearing? So in other words, because we didn't do a public hearing, did we leave the door open for where we are now?
Based on what Jack has confirmed, no, we have not. Public hearing is at the discretion of the Board of Health. It's not a requirement. The only requirement for a public hearing is Title V.
But he's saying if.
You can do all the ifs you want. If we had done a public hearing for this, all it would have meant was that we were opening up for public commentary. It would have nothing to do with whether or not the board would have gone ahead, yes or no. That's still on us. We could have still approved it. We just taken in the public's comments. That's all the public hearing is about, is to let the public give us their viewpoint on what is before the board to vote on. That's what a public hearing is for. It's not to automatically deny or approve something. That has to happen amongst the board.
Right, but if you had a public hearing and it was advertised that we were going to change the one section of the tobacco regulations to include 1,000 foot between tobacco sales, then it would be on the applicant or future applicants to be aware of that meeting and to speak their piece. And if they didn't speak their piece and we adopted what we adopted, the 1,000 feet, then they would be done.
Yeah, because then we would put out notice.
I think that was your.
Well, that's my question, like,
Yeah.
anything with the, like, regulations, Board of Health talks about regulations, I just want to keep in my mind, all right, public hearing type of thing, like automatically. That's
think
all I
it's-
was trying to go for.
It's a hypothetical.
Right, but it's in the future to avoid everything that we've gone through. Maybe a public hearing is the safe route to go
I could see it.
because it notifies everyone that we're making a change. Might not be necessary, but maybe that's the better route to go, because as Colleen pointed out, now that we have discovered this and that we should have put an effective date into that section of the regulation, it could, anybody could, well, how come you don't have waiver regulations? A waiver option in the regulation. And then we could be going down this road over and over and over again for different things. Because different things could pop up that come to light that there was a detail in a change that we should have put in. So going the public hearing route kind of safeguards that. Because it gives, instead of us trying to monitor what every approving authority in town is doing, the applicant or future applicants have to pay attention.
Correct.
And we're advertising it and giving them an opportunity to, whoa, I got something in the pipeline. Is this going to affect me? Before all this happens and before we have to go back and forth with town council over and over again to make sure that we get it right.
And that's great for future policy if we want to make that our quote unquote policy moving forward.
That's all I was looking for, to find direction.
Right.
Because the next regulations would be the private well regulations.
Right.
Right.
We don't have to have a public hearing.
But that scenario has absolutely nothing to do with this.
No, nothing. I'm just
No,
looking for guidance on regulations, period.
What if situation?
Right.
But it's a good conversation to have.
And to adopt a best practices,
Correct.
even if we make public hearing our first, and then we really look at it and we decide we don't need to go that route, it's probably good for us to be aware and alert.
I think it's a good practice to get into with regards to regulations. It's been my experience 29 years. Anytime that we had any type of adoption of a regulation or an amendment to a regulation, we always held a public hearing.
And I can see us absolutely making that the best practice policy. I would totally agree with that. That takes that little, this situation potentially happening out of the loop. Because then it might raise questions that we were kind of missed on this. I mean, we didn't, in my view, we didn't really look at this closely when we adopted it. That was, in my view, I'll take my personal mistake. We took it in. We never really had a meeting where we discussed all these things. We had a meeting where they were all presented in September, and then we had a vote on it in December. It's never a meeting where we actually went down the list and said this. Maybe that's what we should have done. We didn't do that.
There really isn't a checklist to say, did you double check this and make sure this would, there isn't.
Everything that Jack highlighted for the new things that were being added to those tobacco regulations was our checklist. We knew exactly what was going to be potentially added on January 1, 2024. We never went through the list. All we did was we were presented the list in September. It was believed that we were going to look through this whole list and evaluate it and everything.
Mhm.
And then come December, when we were asked to vote on it, we voted on it. But we as a board never did in a meeting, never actually broke it down and went boom, boom, what about this? We never did that. Maybe we should have.
Well, I guess we were sort of entrusted on our own to review what Jack provided us with and to see if any questions came to mind.
So I would ask.
So
them-
no questions came to mind.
Right, so I would ask them, does this intent of what's proposed new wording, does that match your feeling? No.
The only thing that I have with it is when we say approving authority. I appreciate the fact that you clarified site plan. But approving authority could be any of the authorities or boards in town.
As far as.
It's not just planning.
Whoever is approving businesses site/business plan, site.
Okay, so
Whatever that-
technically, who does a site plan go before first? Is
Planning,
there a
Say
first?
planning.
Always.
Always.
Okay.
Then the planning board then disseminates that information down to groups like us, conservation, public safety, highway, for comment.
ZBA, if they needed a
Yeah, well,
variance.
I see that happening now, but I can't say that I've always seen that practice. It seems as though that's a practice that has been heightened.
Well, I think that maybe there's been a realization that, I will say it's been stated in a meeting, no group should operate in a silo. And I think maybe there's a better awareness now of a team approach
Communication.
for all the groups.
Mhm.
Because even though it starts with planning, there's elements of what they look at that are potentially going to touch on BOH, conservation, public safety, highway. So they're given that allowance for us to comment. That's why, and maybe up until recently, we haven't given enough credence to that opportunity where commenting allows us to put forth, I won't say concerns, but just references to the property as we know it, what we think, the applicant should be aware of. Doesn't mean that any major changes have to happen to the plan, but just so they're aware of it up front. A lot of what, Pauline said this before, a lot of what we end up doing with the applicant after they've been approved happens in the nitty gritty once they actually come to us with their applications to put in the septic, put in the well. That's when all the really nuts and bolts happen. But to have an opportunity up front to give it like One North Ave, concern about the arsenic in the soil. So it was a great point to want to put out there as part of a commentary.
Yeah, this is a fairly recent change in my eyes that I've seen.
I think we're seeing more.
Involvement.
I think we're just seeing more involvement. I think it's always, to be honest with you, I think it's probably been there. I just wonder from the past.
And I say there's probably like 4 properties that when I first started, that I let the Board of Health know. One North, Paisley Street Project, 23 Cape Road, Way House. I want to say there's one more.
Yeah.
But those are the many.
Well, I think also the scope of projects has changed. It's not a subdivision of 3 or 4 houses. It's commercial stuff that we're seeing now.
Sure.
So maybe it's an evolution that's going on.
Well, the town's growing.
All right, so to keep us on topic.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm trying to,
Segway us.
I did.
gotta pay attention here. So we will discuss adopting additional language to that section of the tobacco regulations regarding the 1,000 feet between tobacco sales. We will discuss that and vote on it our next meeting.
That is my plan.
Okay,
Well, my personal view is that was kind of the intent of what we could do under this topic tonight. To be honest with you. Because it's a continuation of tobacco regulation discussion. This was an element of discussion. The only thing we were waiting for was a confirmation back from town council whether they had any issue with the wording or not. We got confirmation back from town council, they're fine with it. So in my view, there's absolutely no reason why we can't take action. That's my,
yeah, I think we should wait 2 weeks. I think we should make it known, and we should make it known what the new additional language is gonna be. And we should do it at our next meeting.
now when you say make it known,
Jack's gonna publish it and publish the language when he puts the agenda up.
okay, so you want to make it part of the agenda.
Yeah, I'll put it when this on the line, it'll be the second page with the agenda.
So anyone looking for the continuation on tobacco regulations is gonna see that posted. It's gonna see the language that we're gonna vote on to adopt or not adopt next in 2 weeks.
Should have actually done this 2 meeting. That was your direction.
Well, it's my direction now because I'm trying to make sure that we're not violating the open meeting laws. And I want to make sure that it's, people have a chance to come to our next meeting.
Putting that phrasing on the agenda has nothing to do with violating the meeting law. This
Okay, well,
particular line.
I'm getting,
In complements of tobacco regulation discussion is sufficient enough because that's a specific discussion. You don't have to be verbatim. You can bulletize,
Right.
just like we talked. But if you want to take that tack, I will, or if you disagree with the direction,
Mhm.
that's your.
All right, Joyce, what's your opinion?
Well, I feel like I said it before, this is something that is distinctly only really applicable to one person, one thing, because after there's nothing, they did everything before in terms of all of their applications. And our requirement now says that after January 1st, you have to have 1,000 feet.
So,
That's a definite, but before then, they were not that was not part of the law. And they had all their applications in before that. So they sort of like come under the apron, so to speak.
okay. So, do you want to vote? Is that what you want to do?
My view would be that we could vote whether or not we want to accept this language tonight. That would be my view.
Okay. Joyce?
I didn't hear what Tom said clearly.
I said, I believe that, it's my view that I believe we can vote on this language tonight because the only thing we were waiting on was town council's viewpoint.
Right,
And town council has said there's no problem with us doing what we're looking to do.
right,
So my view is that we could vote on this tonight.
right. I agree with that.
We can take a vote.
Jack, make a motion to accept the amended language.
All right,
You should state out what the amended
Yeah.
language is.
may I?
Yep.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to adopt the language whose site business plan was approved by the town of Mendon's approving authority on or after January 1st, 2024. I'm looking at inserting that into well, it's gonna come under A new tobacco product sales permit shall be issued. And then I'm also looking to insert whose site business plan was approved by the town of Mendon's approving authority on or after January 1st, 2024.
No,
To
I
be-
don't think it's on or after. I think it's before January 2024. Because if it's after January 2024, then
Okay, where you don't have them in front of you,
no.
the first statement is to issue. Wait a minute, I'm confused now. Shall not be issued. You don't have this in front of you, do you, Joyce?
The one from Karis?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
The
do.
one that shows the amended,
Right, yeah, I do.
so can you see the language for A and the language for B? Should I just read the whole thing?
sure,
All right, why don't I do that? So this is A. A new tobacco product sales permit shall not be issued to any new applicant for a retail location whose site business plan was approved by the town of Mendon's approving authority on or after January 1st, 2024, within 1,000 feet of a public or private elementary school as measured in a straight line from the nearest point of the property line of the school to the nearest point of the property line of the site of the applicant's business premises. So the first section has to do with a school. The next section has to do with an existing retailer. A new tobacco product sales permit shall not be issued to any applicant for a retail location whose site plan was approved by the town of Mendon's approving authority on or after January 1st, 2024, within 1,000 feet of an existing retail with a valid tobacco product sales permit as measured by a sight line from the nearest point of the property line of the retailer with a valid tobacco product sales permit to the nearest point of the property line of the site of the applicant's business premises. So I need a motion for that and a second, please.
Joyce, you want to make the motion, or you want me to make?
Well, you've got all the more paperwork there. I'd prefer that you made it and then I would second it.
So I will make the motion that we adopt the language as read by the chair in those sections of the tobacco regulations effective immediately.
I second that motion.
I'm gonna A, only because of procedural things, just my opinion.
Okay.
Very good, thank you,
We need to officially vote though.
didn't we?
Get a motion in a second.
So now,
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's state our votes for the public.
Tom,
Aye,
aye.
Joyce, aye.
Alan, nay. All right, thank you.
Well read.
Good thing you had it funny. All right. So that was That was the tobacco regulations discussion. Now, do we go to 147 Hartford Ave East permit review?
Probably should, just to close out, to see what we want to do with that. Because you raised a position that potentially is valid.
Okay, so we're gonna go to old business, agenda item 4. We're gonna go to B now. 147 Hartford Ave East tobacco permit review. So how do we handle that situation?
Well, the board currently has an application in hand that has yet to be acted on. Question would be, how does the board want to act on that application that we have in hand?
Joyce, any comments?
Well, my first thought was that they did meet the requirements at the time when they had all their approvals were done for having it without, when it wasn't 1,000 feet. So, I mean, I think that they should be able to get their permit based on that.
Colleen?
I haven't seen the application.
Jack?
I have no opinion.
Do we physically have their application?
I do next door.
Yeah, and we have a check, I would assume.
Yes, it's been paid for.
Again, my opinion on this is that the original application was made at the date that we did not have the language that was just adopted, the clarification, the effective date, I'll call it, was not in the regulation like it should have been. So I feel, and I had already made the statement, that after we sorted all this out, that they could reapply. So I really feel they should reapply.
I would understand that with a new date.
Yeah.
I could see wanting to do that. Because technically, when they applied, it wasn't the regulation, the verbiage of the regulation was such that it was. It didn't match the intent of the regulation, albeit I will state that for the record. But one could argue, well, it wasn't intended to apply to an application, to that particular application. So the question is, do you want to base it on what was intended? Or do you want to base it on what we've just done with actual verbiage?
My opinion is I think it would be cleaner to have them reapply. Joyce?
I mean, if they reapply, are they going to be reapplying under the old law or the new law?
Well, the law didn't change. What changed was that section of the regulation, we inserted an effective date, which we all feel should have been there from the beginning.
Right, but it wasn't.
That correct. It wasn't at the time of the application.
Right,
So if they reapply,
right,
now it is there,
right.
and we can vote to approve or deny their application. I just think it would be cleaner rather than taking the application that was already submitted and the date that it was submitted.
I guess I don't understand, because if we're saying that after January, blah, 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 24, this is what it is, it's 10,000, I mean, it has to be 1,000 feet, then that's the rule now.
Right,
So that,
and the rule-
they're gonna fall into that then.
but the rule is effective today, effective immediately. It wasn't effective when they applied. I just don't, I think it's messy one way and clean the other.
And the variable here, Joyce, is the element of when the applicant's site plan was approved. What we're saying is any business whose site plan was approved after January 1, 2024 would be affected by the 1,000-foot distance requirement from
Right.
other tobacco holders.
Right,
This particular applicant, they had their site plan was approved in 2023
right,
prior to when it went into effect in 2020.
Correct.
So this particular element would not affect that applicant's tobacco application from being a reason why they could be denied.
Correct.
But I see what Joyce is struggling with is we have an application at hand. It hasn't been acted on yet. All we'd really be doing would be asking the applicant to fill out another application with a new date. You know, one could argue that we really should act on the application we have in hand. Right? Now the question becomes, in acting on that application, if you want to factor in what was intended to happen initially, would it be proper to deny it? Because if what we're saying now, we're correcting what should have been in place originally, there is no basis for a denial. Because all we're doing is correcting something that was intended to be there in the beginning.
That's fine. I feel at the time that the applicant applied.
Yeah.
And the way the regulation was written, that it should either be denied or pulled back. And I stated that to Mr. Onesian and Attorney Bernazzi, that they, after we sorted this all out, they could reapply. I didn't say whether it was approved or denied. I just said they could reapply. I just think it's cleaner where we have an effective date, effective immediately today at this meeting, that we inserted the language to clarify the intent with an effective date, that the application come after that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, the application technically did already come in after January 1, 2024. It came to us in April
Right, but it didn't come to us after the effective date.
of this verbiage change.
Right.
That's correct.
Well, this addition.
Yeah.
To clarify, as you pointed out, to clarify the intent. So I feel the application should come after. It's just a formality
Yeah,
again,
it's kind of
but
I understand I understand where you're coming from. I would then, if we do that, I would, I don't know how we handle the original application. I would
Deny it.
say I don't think we could deny it.
Sure you can.
they can withdraw it.
They could withdraw it. I would not deny that application. I would not actually stamp that application as denied.
Well, that's why I stated could be denied or withdrawn.
Withdrawn would be the better way to do it. Let them reapply a new application.
Okay.
Because what we're saying here is this is what the board intended right from the very beginning. And all we're doing is putting it specifically in language. We're taking away the ambiguity.
Correct.
So I don't think it would be fair to deny that applicant because we'd be denying it. We'd be denying ourselves because that's not what was intended.
Well, again, that's why I use the kind of the two options, whichever is most appropriate.
I personally would think the withdrawal of it and the resubmission would be,
Okay. So
yeah,
Jack, do you want to notify them
Yep, I'll let Mario know.
to withdraw and to reapply?
Okay.
Which is almost word for word what I told them at the last meeting that they were here. And, you know, just go through the process. Now that the effective date is, for that section of the regulation has been inserted effective today. So that everything falls in line chronologically. Joyce, you okay with that?
makes sense to you?
Well, I mean, to me, you're just saying that if he applies now, he has to follow the new rules, which are 1,000 feet, which he's not going to be able to do.
Well, no. What the caveat is in the phrasing is that the 1,000-foot rule applies to any applicant whose site plan was approved after January 1, 2024.
Right,
This applicant's site plan was approved in July of 2023.
correct.
So this particular verbiage would not apply to that applicant.
Right. That's what I was saying, right from the beginning.
Right, so what Alan's saying is from a time, chronological time perspective, he was looking to have an application that was dated after we've actually put in the language that was intended, which is effective this evening. So he'd want to see them pull back their original dated application from April and resubmit a new application that would go through the process. He's trying to match the dates up with what we're doing. To, you know, to be in line chronologically.
Right.
But their application they subsequently submit. This particular element would not hinder the approval because this is based on when a business's site plan was approved. And their
Right.
their site plan was approved in 2023.
Right.
Yeah. Somebody new came along. The
Right.
site plan was approved after January 1.
Absolutely. Right.
This
Gone.
would apply to them. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so if you're in agreement, Joyce, Jack is gonna notify them to reapply.
Right. So they're gonna reapply at this time of the year, which is August 2024, for their permit for tobacco. And now the rule is, at this time, 2024, that it has to be 1,000 feet from the other salesperson.
Well, no, it's only an applicant whose site plan was approved after January 1, 2024, not any applicant who comes before us.
Right, I know, but he's now going to be applying after,
But his site plan was approved in 2023. So this requirement, if you were looking at what could or could not deny the application, this requirement would not apply to that application. It'd
right,
have to be some other basis for the denial. Not
Right.
this.
right. Yeah, well, I guess for some reason, it's like redundant to me then. Seems that it's redundant. He's gonna be able to get his license. Right? I mean, is that what we're not saying?
Well, I think what Alan's trying to do is line up the chronological element of what we've done here, such that we're putting into the language what was intended to be put in initially. It's just that it was not in there at the time that the applicant filed the application, which was after January 1, 2024 anyway. But the discussions we've had have taken us to the fact that that application was not intended to be affected by that clause, by those clauses. But because we're actually making a change in the wording, there's a desire to kind of just line up the chronological dating accordingly. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I see what Alan's trying to do. I could go either way.
I'm just saying, I believe that this plan is set up so that it meets the requirements before. Because they got all their signage done before January. So, and it's gonna be the only one ever again. Not.
Yeah,
gonna
so
ever
basically,
happen.
if
Never
I may,
gonna come up
Joyce?
again. What?
So Joyce, what the board is trying to tell you is the regulations have changed immediately tonight. Harrio or the property owner 147 is gonna start fresh with a new application, which the board can now approve or review rather, with the new regulations that have been amended. So Al was just asking, it's just easier to withdraw the first one and give us a new one because it will be in order with the new amended tobacco regulations.
Which are 1,000 feet.
But his plan was pre-approved, which the regulations now state, which is acceptable.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Thank you all. All right,
There's a process.
so if nobody has any questions or comments, I'll move on to the next agenda item, please. We're going to go to agenda item 5, Board of Health admin updates, please.
I only have one, and that's the Eversource property on Providence Street about the illegal dumping. I went down there on, after work on Friday, July 27th, and nothing was done. So Monday morning, when I got into work, I emailed Peter Bowen, the representative of Eversource. He got back to me and he's targeting, there's a lot of stuff going on the property with gas and stuff. He said he apologizes, but now they'll get a target date of next week. So I just want to let the board know, nothing has been done yet, but I'm still tracking that property.
There's a lot of activity that they have been, but there was a work, Jack and I saw the, mobile work, trailer there.
Trailer.
And then there was a lot of machinery. They've been coming in and out of
So
it.
they've got a lot of utility work going
Yeah,
on.
there was a lot of.
This cleanup.
Yeah.
Were there a lot of items down there that they found that have been,
When I went down there on the 27th of Friday, they had 2 mattresses, like a leather couch, foldable couch,
Have they fixed the gate?
nothing for a key.
yeah, they-
No, because they've been going in
Yeah,
and
no, I'm
out of
just-
there. Yeah,
So
Yeah, but supposedly,
there's been no progress on the gate or the cleanup.
correct.
There's been a lot of utility activity, I'll call it construction
yep.
Yeah.
going on.
Yes,
And he gave you a complete date of,
next week.
oh, so they're just gonna wait, they've done their thing. As part of the process, they'll take away all.
Oh, yeah, they had like parts of the road closed down all last week. And I mean, there's been a lot of activity there. Because that's like,
I guess the most important thing is they're physically on the property.
yes,
So that's better than what we had where it was sort of abandoned.
Mhm.
There was nothing going on. So they're driving by this stuff every day,
haven't seen any new dumping there either.
No, I haven't done.
probably because there's,
Yeah, the work
Action
is-
going.
The work is there.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta move.
so we're a little better than we were, even though it's not.
A little better.
Okay.
But he does know that the board is watching.
Okay,
That's all I had.
all right. Any questions or comments on that topic? All right, we'll move on to agenda item 6, health agent updates. Colleen, please.
We have a lot of activity going on. I'm currently investigating, I should say, 2 allegations of food poisoning at 2 separate restaurants. I haven't completed my report, so I'll just leave it at that and I'll have more specific information for the board when I complete my report. We also working on 2 investigations. One was at a commercial establishment in Mendon that was, they changed the use to residential. We spoke with the landlord and have since ceased with the residential use as well as the commercial use. That business will be out of Mendon. And we have another issue with another commercial building in Mendon that is one unit may or may not have be used as residential. Spoke with that landlord and working with that landlord, working that out. From what I understand, that tenant was issued a 30-day notice to quit. So that we're sorting through that. Went down and investigated it. I had some look to it of residential use, notified the zoning agent as well on both properties. We're at the 6-month mark for our restaurant inspection, so we're working for them, food trucks. very busy with that. And now we're preparing to inspect the school cafeterias, because believe it or not, school will be back in session very soon. So, spoke with Sean Reardon about the blasting. They have one more week of blasting, one more day this week of blasting. Then after they'll have that completed, that will start the clock ticking for the 45 days for the post well testing. So Jack and I kind of put a tentative date of mid-September on our calendar, and we'll follow up with him. He's also the cesspool that they discovered in the discussions of the tight tank. We're continuing that. Tom Ryder weighed in on it, and Stevie Donatelli, so we're working through that right now. And well, we had the 55 Hastings Street, that was on my report as well. And we're gonna have a new tea shop in town, so we're working with the owners to get them up and running. So we're pretty
Very
busy.
good.
Yep.
Is that gonna be?
Right on
Maple Street,
Maple Street, right on in the,
where Herbs Make Sense used to be.
yep,
Yeah.
that's gonna be a tea shop.
Oh, I didn't know they moved out.
Which was a t-shirt.
Which was a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, so another t-shirt.
It's gonna be another t-shirt.
Oh,
yeah.
And coffee and light sound, light.
Yeah, I didn't know they,
Yeah, so we met with the owners and the property owner last week in the office to just discuss, because that's an on-site septic system. So, the tea shop before that didn't have to have a grease trap because she wasn't preparing food there, and her menu is limited to prepackaged foods. That is gonna change, so now they're gonna be required to put a grease trap in to protect the on-site septic system.
questions or comments on this topic? The only comment I'll
No.
make is I met
I
the
know,
young lady.
I'm just coughing my head off here, so I had to. just,
Any questions or comments, Joyce, on
good.
this topic?
Nope, nope. I'm
All right,
glad to
very
hear,
good.
I'm glad to hear it. Sounds like something nice that's coming too.
There you go. The only comment I'll make is I met the young lady who is now working for the collaborative.
Yes, Emily.
Very nice young lady. And I'm sure that she'll be working closely with you.
We already have been, and Stacy too, which reminds me, for the board's next agenda.
Mhm.
We're gonna have to put that as an agenda item to have Stacy and Emily act as health inspectors.
We already went through that on there,
You did, Emily?
both of them.
Oh, okay, all right. I don't follow it. Well, I wasn't at that meeting.
I don't know, but I will,
Okay,
the
thank
board
you.
did both them in.
Then that's it.
All right, so if there's no more questions or comments on agenda item 6, we'll move to agenda item number 7, topics not anticipated within 48 hours.
Anybody from the board? I do have one.
Please.
Joyce, you don't have this because I came in late. This is from the Will Abater 20-year agreement. Finally got this in. So I'm assuming the board would like to continue. And I'm just looking for who would you like as a secondary contact, because I would assume I'd be the first one.
Are there any options?
Be-
I mean, he asked if we want to continue.
You got 3 options, Joyce, Tom, or Alice.
No, he means whether or not we want to continue with the agreement.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, where else do you put your stuff?
Well,
And obviously the best price is when we group together.
yeah.
Will this be another 20-year?
I'm gonna say yes.
And
Will that group out of curiosity stay intact? You know, no changes to that?
We don't know yet. They're just looking for contact information.
Yeah,
to
this is
contact us.
preliminary.
Joyce, did you hear that?
You're on mute.
Yeah, I know it.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm coughing,
fine.
so
You're fine.
I didn't hear it, so.
The wheel operator is looking for contact information because the contract is coming up to an end. So they're just trying to get preliminary information from all the towns on who would be interested. And there are 2 spaces for names. I'd be one of them, so I'm looking for a name for the second space.
Okay,
So you want to be the second contact, Joyce?
sure, I don't care.
There you go.
As
And
long
I
as they,
take it
as
with-
long, as long as they don't mind me coughing on them all the time.
All right, and I take it where you're gonna be the second contact for this, that you're in agreement that we want to continue, if possible,
Absolutely.
with this agreement. Okay.
Absolutely. I was involved in the very, very, very first one, so,
See,
would
this,
be-
this is why it's important that you be on the contact list.
I
right.
think Joe should be the primary contact then. right?
That's fine. That's fine.
No, I'm just kidding,
No,
Joyce.
no,
I'm just
no,
kidding.
I'm okay. I gotta keep going here, you know?
All right,
All right, that's all I had.
all right. So we're good to go with this and we're all in agreement. And I'm glad that we finally have something in front of us because, I definitely don't want to be out in the cold with where we put our trash.
Darn right.
All right, so if there's nothing else on topics not anticipated within 48 hours, we'll move to number 8, good and welfare for the board. Tom, you always have a lot on this because you read all the emails.
Well, I wouldn't say a lot. I would just say we have gotten updates.
Yeah, they're hot and heavy.
Triple E and West Nile virus, so just to kind of summarize. We did get recent notices from a statistic perspective. We now have 2 confirmed cases of West Nile virus and 1 confirmed case of triple E on a
Course, I believe.
on an animal. So if anyone wants further information, they go to mass.gov, they can see all the statistics. Get the breakdown.
Yeah, you gotta be aware, gotta be careful. Pay attention, because, I think today it came in that Bellingham had another positive
Yes.
sequel. And,
Yeah.
Blackstone too.
yeah,
Did a
Franklin.
press release today.
So, I mean, it's like once a week where
Yeah, we're
some
getting updated
towns that
once
are,
a week.
that are close to us.
Yeah.
So we've been very fortunate, but everybody needs to stay, aware.
And I would like to compliment Jack with regard to that topic. He's been doing a very good job keeping our website updated, especially with respect to the triple E West Nile virus. And I'd also like to point out another element, something he did that I don't know if the board's aware of. He added a nice little thing on the front page of the Board of Health with regard to the title, "Are you moving to Mendon?"
Yeah.
And then, so from that, you can now get all this information.
Oh, welcome wagon.
Yeah, well, what's like,
I thought you just put that up, what, a week ago?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm, if I saw it and I was on the website recently, I may have glossed over that.
It was actually up front. It's on the main page. It's one of the, 4 or 5
One of the
things you
tabs.
can highlight. That's one.
Very good.
some people know, because actually just gonna call, I'm going off topic, I'm sorry, never mind.
Okay,
I just wanted to compliment Jack on that. Joyce is on board too. Thank you, Joyce.
Sorry, kids.
That's all right.
that was a yes vote. All right. The only, I don't have anything else on that. So we'll set the next meeting.
August 28th.
Seven 30.
7:30.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Mark. Thank you all for attending.
Good night now.